Hello everyone, welcome to your pharmacology class. Our topic for today will be all about drugs affecting the endocrine system. Again, my name is Miss Abby De Mesa, your nursing pharmacology lecturer. Now, ang pag-uusapan natin is kung papaano magkakaroon ng epekto ang mga substances na ibibigay natin in our patients, but the target will be the endocrine system. Dito ang priority concepts natin will be the hormonal regulation and at the same time, yung glucose regulation among our patients. Kapag sinabi nating endocrine system, it is made up of what we call ductless glands na naglalabas ng hormones which are part of the chemicals present in our body at itong mga hormones na to ay diretso sa ating dugo. Hormones control certain life processes such as metabolism, growth and development, reproduction, stress response, even fluid and electrolyte balance. With the endocrine system, meron din tayong tinatawag na isa sa mga key concept which is the negative feedback mechanism. Ang ibig sabihin nitong negative feedback mechanism, kapag sobra ang hormones sa katawan natin, pinipigilan ang gland na mag-secrete pa ng hormones or mag-secrete pa ng mas marami pang hormones. Wherein, kapag naman kinukulang ng hormones ang ating katawan, mas pinapabilis naman ang production ng glands ng hormones for our body to use. As we recall the anatomy of the endocrine system, this picture will help you determine where are or where is the location of those glands present in our body. Na kung saan there are certain glands present particularly for male individual and specifically for female individuals. Drugs affecting the endocrine system is divided into four major classifications. Meron tayong tinatawag na hypothalamic and pituitary drugs. Meron din tayong adrenocortical medications, thyroid and parathyroid drugs, and last group are categorized as the anti-diabetic medications. The first group of medications will be under the category of hypothalamic and pituitary drugs. Growth hormone agonist ang isa o ang una nating pag-uusapan. Ito ang ibinibigay nating gamot sa mga kondisyon na kung saan nagkukulang ang secretion ng growth hormone. Ibig sabihin, hindi lumalaki o hindi tumatangkad ng naaayon sa edad ang isang individual. Ito ay ginagamit mas madalas sa mga bata na merong identified growth hormone deficiency. Sa mas madaling paraan, ang ibinibigyan natin ng gamot under growth hormone agonist are those diagnosed with dwarfism. So may kaliitan or maliit ang mga bata base sa kanilang edad. Somatropin ang pangalan ng gamot na kinoconsider natin under this category. Now, obviously, somatropin will replace deficient growth hormone and it will promote bone growth, muscle growth, and overall body development para makahabol or para tumangkad yung isang individual or isang bata ng naaayon sa kanyang edad. This medication acts like natural growth hormone in our body. So once these drugs na receive ng pasyente, it will stimulate linear bone growth and cellular protein synthesis. Of course, medications will enter our body, it will cause effects, and one of those effects na binabantayan natin will be the adverse effects. There are several identified adverse effects with this group of hypothalamic medications. Now, isa sa mga adverse effects na yan will be hypothyroidism. Second, there is a glucose intolerance or hyperglycemia, edema, joint pain, and there are also noted nutritional imbalance. Pagdating sa nursing consideration, napaka-importante, future nurses, that you are aware of the interventions that we will provide to our patients receiving growth hormone agonist. Isa na sa mga importanteng alam natin is to monitor growth charts of our patients and the children's response to therapy. Again, those individual recommended to receive somatropine are those children with problems pagdating sa secretion ng growth hormone. Kinukulang sa secretion ng growth hormone. Second important nursing consideration is to assess thyroid function. That includes the levels of their TSH, T3, and T4. It is also important, since part of the adverse effects is hyperglycemia, to closely monitor the blood glucose levels. It is part of the essential nursing consideration as well is to educate the parents with regards to regular injections, follow-up checkups, laboratory tests as well of our patients. Pagdating sa pagbibigay ng growth hormone agonist, importante, future nurses, na alam natin na ito ay ina-administer via intramuscular or subcutaneous injections only. Nobody will give this via intravenous route. I will repeat, never administer somatropine via IV. Kabaliktaran ng growth hormone agonist natin ang second classification of drugs na pag-uusapan natin, which are what we call growth hormone antagonists. There is the term antagonist. Ibig sabihin, itataliwas o kakalabanin niya kung ano man ang ginagawa ang ginagawa ng growth hormone in our body. Ibig sabihin, dito makikita natin na mayroong pagpigil sa secretion ng growth hormone. Ang growth hormone antagonist, ang mga grupo ng gamot na siyang ginagamit natin in cases na kapag ang isang individual o ang isang pasyente ay napapasobra ang kanyang tangkad or mas matangkad ang kanyang height versus sa kanyang edad. Ito ay indicated sa mga kondisyon kung tawagin natin gigantism, or yung may mga cases which is what we call acromegaly. When we say acromegaly, these are tumor-related cases which are the result of excess growth hormone secretion. Drug samples under this category are octreotide, brand name is sandostatin. We also have pegvisomant, which is brand name Somavert, and the last one is your bromocriptine or your Parlodel. Growth hormone antagonists therapeutic action, obviously, it will block the growth hormone kasi nga, our goal is to decrease the excessive growth among our patients. Ngayon, ang mga gamot na to ibinibigay, ina-administer sa pasyente, kaya binabantayan din natin ang mga iba't ibang identified adverse effects. Isa na dyan yung mga related to gastrointestinal. Anything related to your digestive system, that includes nausea, vomiting, stomach cramps, we have to watch out. We have to inform the prescriber as well. And then, formation of gallstone is also observed among those patients who receive growth hormone antagonist. Kaya we have to thoroughly assess or evaluate abdominal pain which are verbalized by our patients. Check as well the blood glucose level kasi meron tayong risk of the development ng hypo or hyperglycemia. Headache and dizziness are also part of those adverse effects ng gamot na to. The nursing considerations that we will provide to our patients when it comes to administration of growth hormone antagonists are also important. Okay? Now, monitor the growth changes. That's number one, because we have to determine if those medications are effective or there are response from our patients receiving this classification of hypothalamic and pituitary drugs. Pangalawa na dapat na ma-accomplish natin is the monitoring of the liver function because your growth hormone antagonists affects the gastrointestinal system, so not only the liver function but also we have to evaluate properly the abdominal pain or if there are abdominal pain reported by your patient. Remember your adverse effects, gallstone, formation of gallstone, and provide comfort measures for those determined adverse effects. Other medications under hypothalamic and pituitary drugs are those what we call posterior pituitary hormone drugs. Ito naman ang mga gamot na siyang may kinalaman pagdating sa mga sakit kagaya ng diabetes insipidus or those what we call SIADH o kung tawagin natin syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone secretion. Meron din tayong tinatawag na nocturnal enuresis. Ibig sabihin nito, class, ang gamot natin, ginagamit ito for cases kagaya nga ng diabetes insipidus na kung saan ito ay isang kondisyon na nagkakaroon ng kakulangan or walang epekto. Yung tinatawag nating ADH or anti-diuretic hormone. Ibig sabihin nito, hindi nagre-reabsorb yung kidneys ng tubig, kaya anong nangyayari sa pasyente natin? Mas madalas ang kanyang pag-ihi, which is we call polyuria. At mas madalas ang kanyang pagkauhaw or kung tawagin naman natin, polydipsia. Meron ding mga iba't iba pang senyales at sintomas na nararamdaman ng pasyenteng diagnosed with diabetes insipidus. Nagkakaroon ng dehydration kasi nga natatanggalan ng tubig ang kanyang katawan. Ngunit, tumataas ang kanyang sodium level, which is what we call hypernatremia naman. And pagdating naman sa kondisyon ng SIDH or yung tinatawag nga natin Syndrome of Inappropriate Antidiuretic Hormone, ito naman ay nagkakaroon ng sobrang secretion ng ADH or ng antidiuretic hormone natin. Kaya may inappropriate secretion. Dito, ibig sabihin, naglalabas ang katawan ng ADH kahit hindi naman siya kailangan. So, anong nagiging epekto? Nagkakaroon ng water retention habang nananatiling normal ang sodium excretion. Ibig sabihin, patuloy na bababa ang sodium concentration naman sa dugo. So, ang effect naman nito is there is what we call a dilutional hyponatremia. Bumabagsak naman ang sodium. Kaya dito, ginagamitan natin ng drugs. And what are those medications? We have what we call desmopressin, tolvaptan, and conivaptan. I will repeat medications under this classification. Posterior pituitary hormone drugs will be your desmopressin, tolvaptan, and conivaptan. Bottom line, these medications will affect the function of your ADH or your anti-diuretic hormone. Let us individually determine the therapeutic action of those medications under the umbrella of posterior pituitary hormone drugs. Simulan natin with desmopressin. Ang desmopressin ay isa sa mga gamot na minimimic yung antidiuretic hormone natin. Kasi ang epekto na gusto nating mangyari dito is what we call the water retention. Mas madalas ang desmopressin ay ginagamit or ibinibigay sa mga pasyenteng diagnosed with diabetes insipidus, mga pasyente na may tinatawag na nocturnal enuresis or yung ihi ng ihi sa gabi. Then, yung may mga bleeding disorders as well, pwede din silang mag-benefit with this medication, desmopressin. Ang ginagawa ng desmopressin is it increases water reabsorption. So anong nangyayari? Nagkakaroon ng less urine output. Ang gamot na to is available with several forms. Meron tayong intranasal, may mga formation tayo ng desmopressin as nasal sprays, pero meron ding oral tablet at saka pwede mo din tong ibigay intravenous. Pagdating naman kay tolvaptan naman ibinibigay kasi ang kanyang therapeutic action, it acts as an antagonist. So, nagbabind si tolvaptan with ADH receptor blockers natin. Mas madalas tong ibinibigay for cases with what we call hyponatremia, yung may sobrang baba ng sodium. And then, SIADH, yung may problema pagdating sa secretion ng antidiuretic hormone nila. Ang ginagawa ni tolvaptan it increases excretion of free water sa body natin. But for tolvaptan, this is only available oral preparation. So do not expect any nasal spray. Do not expect any other forms of these drugs. So mas madalas oral preparation lamang siya. Now, one important key concept ni tolvaptan, the tolvaptan raises serum sodium by removing the free water in our body. So, yan ang isa sa mga importanteng alam dapat natin, future nurses, pagdating sa therapeutic action ng gamot na to. The third drug is your conivaptan. Your conivaptan naman, similar with your tolvaptan, ito po ay isa ding antidiuretic hormone antagonist. Ginagamit din for hyponatremia, the hyponatremia which is due to SIAD, and your conivaptan, ang ikinaiba naman niya, siya naman can be given intravenous only. Intravenous. Now, if you ask what's the difference of the tolvaptan and conivaptan is stronger. Well, obviously, conivaptan will be administered intravenous, so the effect is mas mabilis. Okay? Kaya dapat ang conivaptan is only administered hospital setting. Must be given in a hospital because there is a risk of rapid sodium correction. Kaya dapat it must be administered by licensed professional, prescribed by a physician, and must be done on a healthcare facility like a hospital. Of course, there are adverse effects to notify kapag nakaka-receive ng desmopressin, tolvaptan, or conivaptan ang pasyente. Water intoxication is one, hyponatremia, headache, nasal irritation, kasi nga meron tayong gamot na via nasal route ang administration, which is your desmopressin, and any changes in their blood, and other patients that manifest signs and symptoms related to arrhythmia. The following are the important nursing considerations that we have to remember as we administer posterior pituitary hormone drugs. First, monitor intake and output, specifically the serum sodium of our patients. Second, watch for signs of water intoxication, specifically drowsiness, confusion, headache. Third, avoid use in vascular disease in patients diagnosed with vascular disease and those pregnant patients. Educate your patient pagdating sa fluid restriction if needed. Ang desmopressin, nabanggit nga natin kanina, ay isa sa mga posterior pituitary hormone drugs na merong nasal preparation. So, ibig sabihin nito, ang medication natin ay ina-administer or ibinibigay through the nose using a spray o kaya may iba namang forms, dropper ang gamit. For desmopressin nasal route, napaka-importante na we follow the doctor's prescription. Usually, it is being given 1 to 2 sprays. Ang medication natin is absorbed to the nasal mucosa wherein mas mabilis ang nagiging absorption. So, tatandaan, mas mabilis ang absorption via the nasal spray. It is commonly used for maintenance treatment with those diagnosed ng diabetes insipidus. Since sa ilong natin ibibigay ang gamot, make sure na clear ang passageway ng nasal area natin. Walang sipon, walang mga nasal secretions na nagkakos ng obstruction in our patients. Avoid using this form of drug kung ang pasyente mo ay may nasal congestion, allergic rhinitis, o kaya yung may mga colds or sinusitis, or any forms of infection within the upper respiratory tract. Kasi, mapapabagal niya yung absorption ng gamot. Then, make sure that you educate your patient na I-rotate yung nostrils na gagamitin kapag mag-i-spray ng desmopressin to avoid irritation. Observe signs of water intoxication since water is retained. Observe as well or note if there are reported headaches, any noticed weight gain, mga confusion, or signs ng hyponatremia. Ang next group of medications na pag-aaralan naman natin na nakakaapekto sa endocrine system natin will be the group of drugs, what we call adrenocortical drugs. Ang mga gamot na to, ang ginagawa nila is ginagaya o pinapalitan yung mga natural na hormones na ginagawa ng adrenal cortex. Ibig sabihin, ang gland na pag-uusapan natin will be the adrenal cortex. So, yung mga hormones na involved dito will be glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, at androgens. Nga lang, pagdating sa clinical use, ang mas madalas nating ginagamit ay yung grupo ng glucocorticoids at mineralocorticoids. Pagdating sa glucocorticoids, drug examples under this category will be prednisone, dexamethasone, hydrocortisone, methylprednisolone, and betamethasone. Yan halos yung mga very common drugs that we give to our patients. Saan at paano nga ba ang paggamit ng mga gamot na ito? Ang mga gamot na to ay ginagamit natin or ina-administer natin to our patients because they possess anti-inflammatory properties. Ibig sabihin, nakakatulong ang mga glucocorticoids para mabawasan ang swelling or ang pamamaga. They are also considered immunosuppressant. Ibig sabihin, ang mga ito may kakayahan pahinain ang immune response ng isang individual. Kaya ginagamit ito pagdating sa allergy or mga may tinatawag nating autoimmune diseases. Tumutulong din ito pagdating sa mga stress response natin at since may kinalaman sa stress response, expect that there will be an increase in what we call blood glucose level. Kaya nakakapagpataas din siya ng glucose level within patients. Now, paano naman ito gumagana? Tinutulak ng gamot ng glucocorticoids ang katawan para mabawasan ang inflammatory chemicals kagaya ng prostaglandins. Ibig sabihin, napipigilan yung overactive immune system kaya nakakatulong sa mga iba't ibang klase ng sakit, specifically immunologic diseases kagaya ng asthma or mga autoimmune problems natin, that also includes lupus, even rheumatoid arthritis, yung mga nangyayaring inflammatory responses. Isa na nga doon is yung swelling or yung pamamaga. Indicated or ginagamit ang glucocorticoids most commonly cases ng allergies, mga yun nga nabanggit ko na nga, asthma, autoimmune diseases, mga adrenal insufficiency, kapag naman kinukulang sa mga natural cortisol ang isang patient or ang isang individual. Since this medications enters the body, of course, expect adverse effects, yung mga hindi ka nais-nais na epekto. Isa na dyan is yung immunosuppression. Ibig sabihin nito, mas madali magkaroon ng infection or mahawaan ng sakit ang taong gumagamit ng glucocorticoids kasi nga immunosuppressant siya. Hyperglycemia will be also expected. Ibig sabihin, may pagtaas sa blood glucose level kaya prone in cases what we call diabetes mellitus ang pasyente natin, lalo na kung magprolong yung pagtaas ng kanyang glucose level. Weight gain at yung isang indication na nagkakaroon ng adverse reaction sa glucocorticoids ang isang pasyente is meron tayong nanonotice na moon phase. Pagtaas ng blood pressure, prone din sila for osteoporosis, mabagal ang kanilang wound healing, gastrointestinal problems, and that includes peptic ulcer. Yung moon face or yung buffalo hump, ito yung tinatawag nating Cushing symptoms. So expect that might be present in those patients continuously receiving prednisone, ayan, yung mga medications natin na under this category, glucocorticoids. Of course, future nurses, it is important that we are aware of important nursing interventions that we have to deliver to our patients receiving glucocorticoids. Number one, never abruptly stop steroids. Ibig sabihin, huwag niyo siyang basta or biglang ititigil. Dapat itaper, ang ibig sabihin ng itaper is yung unti-unti mong binababaan ang dosage ng gamot. Kasi kailangan nating maiwasan yung tinatawag nating adrenal crisis or yung Addisonian crisis. Mas madalas ibinibigay ang gamot sa umaga dahil ganito yung nangyayari in the natural rhythm ng ating cortisol. Ibig sabihin, mas ibinibigay siya sa umaga kasi nga it mimics natural peak of cortisol in our body. Always monitor the blood sugar of your patient. Not only that, but included din yung blood pressure, the weight of your patient, and any signs of infection we have to assess our patients. Fluids and electrolytes as well kasi bantayan natin yung biglaang pagtaas ng sodium at biglang pagbaba naman din ng potassium. To avoid infection, mas mainam na payuhan ang ating mga pasyente na umiwas sa masyadong matataong lugar kasi nga weak ang kanilang immune system as they take glucocorticoids kaya umiwas sa mga activities na kung saan mas madali silang mahahawaan ng iba't ibang klaseng infections, whether bacterial or viral. And at the same time, iwasan muna ang magpabakuna, especially live vaccines. And pagdating naman sa paggamit ng mga over-the-counter drugs, payuhan din ang pasyente na iwasan ang pag-inom ng mga non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs kasi if they will combine glucocorticoids with this group of medication, may increased risk of gastrointestinal bleeding sa ating mga pasyente. Next to your glucocorticoids are the second group of adrenocortical drugs, ang tawag natin mineralocorticoids. Ito naman, ang gamot na ginagamit natin dito is identified as fludrocortisone. I will repeat, fludrocortisone. Now, this medication is used because it replaces aldosterone. Ibig sabihin, ang gamot na to ay ginagamit kasi pinapataas niya ang sodium and water retention. Tinutulungan niya yung body na panatilihing stable ang blood pressure and at the same time yung fluid balance. Ginagaya ng mineralocorticoid ang natural na hormone natin which is the aldosterone. So uulitin ko, pakisulat, pakikabisado, ang ginagawa o ang target ng mineralocorticoids is gayahin ang natural na hormone natin which is the aldosterone. Ang aldosterone kasi, class, ang siyang responsible pagdating sa pagpapanatili ng sodium at ng tubig in our body. At the same time, ang aldosterone din ang may kinalaman sa pag-excrete ng potassium. Kaya ito mas madalas ibinibigay or indicated to conditions such as may mga adrenal insufficiency, kagaya ng Addison's disease, and orthostatic hypotension. So, ibig sabihin, it will increase the sodium and water retention in our body at the same time palalabasin or it will excrete potassium. Similar to other medications, there are also noted adverse effects in our mineralocorticoids. Isa na nga dyan, of course, hypertension, pwedeng makita or maobserbahan sa mga pasyente, edema or pamamanas, hypokalemia or yung masyadong pagbagsak ng potassium levels. So, para malaman natin na bumabagsak ang potassium levels, isa sa mga pwedeng magbigay sa atin ng indication is yung verbalized muscle weakness or any signs of arrhythmia among our patients receiving mineralocorticoids. Fluid overload, so pwedeng makita natin to sa mga pasyente na may mga cardiac disease, specifically congestive heart failure. And importante, future nurses, that you know what to do if your patient are receiving mineralocorticoids. Number one, since blood pressure ang apektado dito, we have to ensure that we monitor, regularly check the blood pressure of your patient. Since meron ditong retention of water, so observe or check the weight of your patient, any swelling related especially to edema, the balance of the electrolyte levels, particularly sodium and potassium. Kinakailangan din na maturuan ng ating mga pasyente na limitahan ang pagkain ng maaalat and observe for early signs of heart failure, congestive heart failure, kagaya ng hirap sa paghinga o kaya naman yung mga sobrang pamamanas o pamamaga. Kaya class, napaka-importante pagdating sa usapin ng mga gamot na nakakaapekto sa functioning adrenal cortex, yung mga kondisyon kagaya ng mga may adrenal insufficiency na kung saan replacement therapy might needed. Pag sinabi nating adrenal insufficiency and the replacement therapy, dito pakisulat, mas madalas ang nangyayari, ginagamit natin ang glucocorticoids plus the mineralocorticoid. Kagaya nga nung nabanggit nating mga sakit kanina, yung Addison's disease or yung adrenal crisis na kung saan dito, pwede nating i-combine yung dalawang adrenocortical drugs natin. Pwede din natin itong gamitin for those cases na may mga long-term steroid withdrawal o kaya mga post-adrenalectomy. So, to sum up, para maalala ulit, itong mga gamot na to, binibigay or itong therapy natin na to, kung kulang ang natural cortisol at aldosterone, binibigay ang mga gamot na to para ma-ensure that we are within the normal level or normal limits pagdating sa blood pressure, pagdating sa glucose, and even yung anti-inflammatory response natin is within the equilibrium. So ulit, in layman's term, as we summarize, ang glucocorticoids gagamitin mo para bumagal o bumaba ang inflammation, ang allergic reaction. Ibig sabihin, ginagamit natin to for cases like with asthma, response to allergy, mga autoimmune disease. Now, for the mineralocorticoids, ginagamit naman natin because we need to balance fluid and electrolytes. Kailangan pataasin ang blood pressure. So, ibig sabihin, kung hypotensive ang pasyente, pwede natin ito ang ibigay para ma-maintain ang blood pressure is within the equilibrium. Another major classification of drugs that works in the endocrine system are the thyroid and the parathyroid drugs or medications. Kapag sinabi nating thyroid hormone replacement, ito yung mga gamot na pumapalit or nagdadagdag ng natural na thyroid hormones na kulang sa katawan ng isang tao. Ang pangkaraniwang gamot natin dito is the levothyroxine, which is ito yung ginagamit sa mga taong may kondisyon kung tawagin natin hypothyroidism or mabagal ang galaw ng thyroid gland nila. Pero para mas maintindihan natin yung grupo ng gamot na pag-uusapan natin classified as thyroid hormone replacement, balikan muna natin in anatomy, ano ba ang ginagawa ng thyroid hormones natin? Natural sa katawan ang hormones ng thyroid natin. Ito yung tinatawag na T3 at T4. Ito yung may responsibility pagdating sa sila yung nagpapabilis ng mga metabolic processes or metabolism sa loob ng ating katawan. Ibig sabihin ng metabolism, pagproseso ng katawan pagdating sa paggamit natin ng energy or every time that we digest the food or yung sa pagkain at energy natin. So uulitin ko, pinapabilis ng T3 at ng T4 yung mga thyroid hormones natin yung metabolic process or metabolism, mga proseso ng katawan pagdating sa pagkain at pag-consume or paggamit ng energy. At the same time, may kinalaman din ang thyroid hormones natin sa pag-control ng body temperature. Tapos nakakaapekto din to pagdating sa heart rate natin. And when it comes to brain development and growth, tumutulong din ang thyroid hormones natin. Kaya kapag kulang ang thyroid hormones, isa sa mga nagiging diagnosis natin is yung hypothyroidism. Importante na kailangan na ma-replace agad natin kung ano yung nagkukulang or kung ano yung nawawala. Kaya meron tayong tinatawag na thyroid hormone replacement therapy. Levothyroxine at saka liothyronine, yung madalas na gamot na maririnig natin under this category. Pero yung pinaka-common na pinaprescribe to those patients diagnosed with hypothyroidism is your levothyroxine. Ito yung mga brand name na Synthroid or Eltroxin. And then we also have your liothyronine, pero bihirang i-prescribe or bihirang ipa-administer itong gamot na ito. Now, paano gumagana ang levothyroxine? Ano ang kanyang mechanism of action? Since siya naman yung mas madalas na ibinibigay sa mga pasyente. Ang ginagawa ng levothyroxine, ginagaya niya yung natural na T4 natin, yung thyroid hormone natin, na ginagawa ng thyroid. Ibig sabihin, nagbibigay tayo ng T4, okay, outside, from outside the body, papasok sa katawan natin. So, ibig sabihin, ang gagawin lang ng levothyroxine is, ginagaya niya yung natural na T4 na kung saan yung T4 naman talaga naturally pinoproduce ng thyroid. So kung ano yung ginagawa ng T4, yun yung minimimic, yun yung ginagaya ni levothyroxine sa ating katawan. So sa katawan kasi natin, ang T4 ay nagiging T3 na pinakaaktibong form na dahil dito, mas napapabilis yung metabolism, mas napapabilis yung heart rate, at saka yung iba't iba pang life processes. So, ang ginagawa basically na thyroid hormone, para mas maintindihan ninyo, is para siyang gasolina ng katawan natin. Ibig sabihin, kapag mababa ang thyroid hormones, mabagal yung takbo natin. Pero kapag nagdagdag tayo or kapag pag nagdagdag ka or uminom ka ng levothyroxine, mas bibilis yung takbo natin or mas bibilis yung takbo natin or mas bibilis yung mga life processes natin. So parang sa sasakyan, kung walang gasolina or kaunti ang gasolina, maaaring bumagal ang takbo, pero kung marami kang gasolina, pwede mong i-accelerate yung bilis ng takbo ng sasakyan mo. When it comes to the thyroid hormone replacement adverse effects, dito ang maoobserbahan natin are related to kapag napapasobra yung dose ng gamot na binibigay sa pasyente or nagkukulang yung dose na ibinibigay natin sa pasyente. So obviously, kapag may excess in the dosage of the drug, expect signs and symptoms related to hyperthyroidism. And those signs and symptoms will be palpitation, tachycardia, there could be nervousness, heat intolerance, there is a significant weight loss, minsan meron ding increased perspiration or pagpapawis ang pasyente, may pagkabalisa at irritable ang nagiging emosyon or mood din ng pasyente natin. May mga tremors or panginginig, sleep disturbances as well. which are all the opposite naman kapag kinukulang naman or below or mababa yung dosage na iniinom ng pasyente natin. Kapag naman ganito ang sitwasyon, ibig sabihin related to hypothyroidism naman ang condition ni patient. So expect kung hypothyroidism ang pinag-uusapan natin will be slow heart rate, mas mabilis mapagod ang pasyente, and when it comes to weight, may weight gain tayong mauobserbahan sa ating mga pasyente. Importante future nurses na alam natin yung mga i-consider natin as we deliver nursing intervention to our patients receiving thyroid hormone replacement drugs. So, isa na dyan is ipapainom mo ang gamot sa umaga bago mag-almusal. Hanggat maaari, ito ay dapat ibigay sa pasyente on an empty stomach. On an empty stomach. Kasi, nagiging mas maganda ang absorption process and mas na-absorb yung gamot natin, so we will be able to expect the intention or the mechanism of action ng gamot. So at least 30 minutes before breakfast we can 30 minutes before breakfast ibigay na or ipainom yung gamot. Huwag isabay or huwag pagsabay-sabayin ang mga gamot kagaya ng iron supplement, calcium, antacid, and even sucralfate along with your levothyroxine. Kasi binabawasan nila yung absorption ng drug. So definitely, kung hindi mo maiwasan na ihinto yung mga iron supplement, calcium, antacid, and sucralfate, at least magbigay ka ng interval or magbigay ka ng distance na 4 hours. Dapat man lang hiwalay ng 4 na oras bago mo ipainom yung mga gamot na nabanggit natin once na nag-take na ng levothyroxine ang pasyente. Monitor for signs of hyperthyroidism, so yung mga nabanggit nga natin, but basically, that will be palpitations, tremors, any signs of anxiety or nervousness. Maintenance ang drug na ito, so hindi mo siya pwedeng bigla-bigla na lamang ititigil. Now, when we talk about pregnancy, levothyroxine is safe and recommended, especially those with pregnancy diagnosed with hypothyroidism. Kasi dapat tuloy-tuloy din ang pag-inom ng buntis ng levothyroxine, or else if abrupt ititigil, pwedeng maging risk ito sa baby or sa babies na nasa loob ng sinapupunan. Regular monitoring of your TSH levels. The recommended is at least or every 6 to 8 weeks lalo na kapag nasa adjusting dose ang patients natin. Kasi our goal is to normalize the TSH, kaya kailangan ng regular monitoring. Pwede din tayong magbigay or start low and go slow. Ibig sabihin nito, lalo na kapag pasyente natin ay mga geriatric, kasi may risk ng cardiac complication. So, ibig sabihin, pwede kang magsimula ng levothyroxine, mababang dose muna, and then gradually, pwede naman siyang dagdagan or i-increase. Basta kailangan maiwasan lang mga any cardiac complications. In addition, as much as possible, avoid switching brands of your levothyroxine. And if chest pain occurs, immediately report this to the prescriber or to the attending doctor. And remind or educate your patient that thyroid hormone replacement is part of those lifelong therapies. The anti-thyroid drugs also belongs to the endocrine medications. Ito naman yung grupo ng gamot na ginagamit natin para pababain yung sobrang secretion ng thyroid hormones. Ibig sabihin, may pagtaas sa levels ng thyroid hormones sa mga patients natin. Ito yung mga pangunahing substances para makontrol yung mga cases kagaya ng hyperthyroidism at Graves' disease. Meron tayong dalawang classification dito, yung tinatawag nating mga thioamides at saka mga iodine solutions natin. But let's start with the thioamides first. the thioamides are your group of drugs na sila yung nag-i-inhibit ng synthesis ng thyroid hormones. Ito, mas madalas ginagamit yung dalawang klase ng gamot, methimazole at saka propylthiouracil. Now, methimazole will always be the first drug of choice pagdating sa mga cases kagaya ng hyperthyroidism. Then, propylthiouracil naman or PTU, mas madalas pine-prescribe kapag ang patients natin ay buntis and nakakaranas ng tinatawag nating thyroid storm. Now, the therapeutic action of the thioamides or ibig sabihin, ano ang ginagawa ng thioamides kapag ina-administer sa pasyente, basically pinipigilan yung paggawa ng thyroid hormones. Again, our thyroid hormones will be your T3 and your T4. So kapag pinigilan natin yung secretion ng thyroid hormone, obviously, ang magiging epekto nito, mas babagal yung magiging metabolism sa pasyente. Mas bababa yung mga symptoms or yung mga signs na nakikita natin, those diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. So, mas makokontrol yung palpitations, mas mamamanage yung weight loss, mapipigilan yung tremors, and pagdating sa paano naman gumagana ang thioamides sa loob ng ating katawan or what is the mechanism of action, ang ginagawa nito, it blocks the thyroid hormone synthesis by inhibiting the enzyme. Ang tawag natin dun sa enzyme involved will be the thyroid peroxidase. Uulitin ko, the enzyme involved, which is blocked by your medication, is your TPO or the thyroid peroxidase enzyme. So, ibig sabihin, ang ginagawa ng gamot is pinipigilan na mabuo or magkaroon ng panibagong secretions ng T3 at ng T4. Dahil dito, hindi agad nagkakaroon ng epekto to sa pasyente at it took 2 to 4 weeks bago maramdaman yung full effect ng gamot dahil may nakaimbak pang hormones sa thyroid gland ng mga patients natin. Now, there are special considerations pagdating sa pag-administer ng propylthiouracil or ng PTU. Ang PTU kasi pinipigilan yung conversion ng T4 to T3 sa loob ng tissues ng patients who are receiving the drug. So dahil dito, mas ginagamit ang PTU sa thyroid storm kaya mas ito yung preferred natin for emergency cases. Thyroid storm kasi is a condition na kung saan it's an emergency case affecting the endocrine system. Now, again, ginagamit or indicated ang mga anti-thyroid drugs sa mga kaso ng hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease, and thyroid storm. When it comes to adverse effects or ibig sabihin mga hindi ka nais-nais na epekto ng gamot, obviously we have several as well under those effects kapag nagbibigay ka ng thioamides. Isa na dyan is yung tinatawag nating agranulocytosis. Ibig sabihin yung agranulocytosis, ito yung pinakamapanganib na adverse effects. Bakit? Kasi dito may pagbaba ng white blood cell sa katawan ng patients which is high risk ang patients natin in acquiring infections. So magkakaroon or makakaranas ng mga reported signs and symptoms kagaya ng sore throat, lagnat, mga mouth sores, ayan yung mga pwedeng verbalization ng patients natin na kung saan it indicates na mayroong pagbagsak sa white blood cell component sa blood ng patient natin. Pwede ding mauwi sa liver toxicity, lalo na kung ang ibinibigay nating thioamide is the PTU or the propylthiouracil. So kung liver ang apektado, obviously watch out for any discoloration among our patients. So expect jaundice, expect changes in the color of the urine as well. Medyo dark ang urine na iniihi ng mga pasyenteng nagkakaroon ng liver toxicity due to administration of thioamides. Right upper quadrant pain. So what are we going to do is to always check the liver function test of your patients. Observe for any hepatotoxicity. Close monitoring as well. Hypothyroidism may also be experienced kasi minsan mapapasobra ang administration ng anti-thyroid drugs. So, nangyayari, naaapektuhan or nasusobrahan yung pag-block sa thyroid hormone. So, observe any verbalization, mga cold intolerance, weight gain, or any bradycardia among your patients. May iba ang kanilang mga adverse effects is via gastrointestinal tract, kaya nagkakaroon ng mga verbalization or complaints related to gastrointestinal upset or meron ding mga rashes in the integumentary. Pagdating naman sa nursing considerations, napaka-importante that we observe early signs of infection. Gaya nga ng nabanggit natin, adverse effects is yung pagbagsak ng WBC. So watch out for any early signs and symptoms related to infection. Monitor the liver function tests, lalo na kapag propylthiouracil ang ina-administer sa patient. Assess for any signs of hypothyroidism kasi baka nasusobrahan na ng dose si patient. And then, always remember to avoid gastrointestinal upset. Your anti-thyroid drugs can be taken with food. In addition to this, pwede din nating i-instruct si patient to take medication with meals to avoid gastrointestinal upset. Instruct the client in how to monitor pulse rate. Remember, watch out for any signs of bradycardia. Instruct the client in the signs of hypothyroidisms. Teach client regarding importance of medication compliance, and do not abruptly stop the medication kasi pwedeng mag-lead siya into thyroid storm. Now, educate patient in monitoring signs and symptoms of thyroid storms. So pagdating sa thyroid storm, please write this down. Signs and symptoms to watch out will be fever, flushed skin. There are also episodes of confusion, mga behavioral changes, tachycardia, dysrhythmias, and signs of heart failure. Other classifications of your anti-thyroid drugs are determined to be the iodine solutions. Ito naman yung mga high-dose iodine preparations, ginagamit ito para pansamantalang ibaba yung secretion ng thyroid hormones natin. So bakit natin ito kailangan gawin? It's because patients may undergo thyroid surgery o kaya naman the patient is suffering from a thyroid crisis. Kaya pwedeng temporarily, slow down muna natin yung secretions ng thyroid hormones natin. Ito yung madalas nating ginagamit na mga gamot, mga potassium iodide, mga sodium iodide, na mga solutions we give to our patients. Now, anong ginagawa ng iodine solutions? So, basically, pinipigilan ang paglabas ng thyroid hormones. Kapag kasi binigyan na mataas na dose ng iodine ang pasyente, nakakatulong ito para pigilan yung pag-release ng T3 at ng T4 from the thyroid gland. So, ito ding iodine solutions help when it comes to pag-shrink or pagpapaliit ng size ng goiter or ng thyroid gland bago mag-undergo ng surgery or ng operation yung pasyente. So, makakatulong ito kasi mapapababa yung vascularity. Ang ibig sabihin na kapag pinababa ang vascularity, hindi masyadong magdurugo or hindi masyadong magiging madugo yung operation or yung surgery ng patient at mas magiging safe yung procedure. Ang tawag sa procedure na to will be thyroidectomy. Now, ginagamit din nga itong solution natin na to control thyroid storm kasi mas mabilis napipigilan yung paglabas or pag-secrete ng hormones. When it comes to the mechanism of action or kung paano ito gumagana, ang nangyayari kapag masyadong mataas ang iodine level, nagkakaroon ng mga iba't ibang effects. Actually, in medicine, we call this as the Wall-Shaikov effect, na kung saan itong yung effect na to, ang nangyayari, nagsasara or nagsha-shutdown temporarily si thyroid gland. Bakit kailangang mag-shutdown? Bakit kailangang temporarily magsarado muna sa thyroid gland? Kasi kailangang pigilan niya yung pag-secrete ng hormones. Hindi kasi siya magkakaroon ng chance to create hormones. So kung walang makikreate ng hormones, walang mapapalabas na hormones. Okay? So, para lang itong emergency brake, okay? Para itong emergency brake sa thyroid natin na kapag sobra ang iodine, napipilitang tumigil ang thyroid sa paglabas ng hormones. So, di ba kapag yung brake sa mga sasakyan, napapatigil yung andar ng sasakyan. So, ganun yung ginagawa ng iodine solutions. So again, to be clear, ang iodine solutions are indicated for number one, pre-operative therapy bago mag-undergo ng thyroidectomy ang pasyente. Yung mga tinatawag nating nakakaranas ng emergency endocrine problem kagaya ng thyroid storm or thyrotoxicosis crisis. Ginagamit din to for short-term therapy ng mga severe hyperthyroidism and mga protection sa thyroid kagaya ng mga radiation emergencies natin. But since this medication enters the body, so expect yung mga hindi na naman kanais-nais na epekto. Siyempre kasama dyan yung iodism. Kapag sinabi mong iodism, ito yung iodine toxicity. So pag masabi natin or ano yung magiging indication natin mga nurses na kapag ang patient mo is suffering from iodine toxicity, number one, meron tayong tinatawag na signs kagaya ng metallic taste sa bibig. So paki-write this down, paki-remember, paki-memorize. These are all related to your iodine toxicity. Metallic taste is the number one. Pangalawa is yung burning sensation sa bibig, even umaabot hanggang sa lalamunan. Sore teeth and gums, headache, skin rashes, and yung iba, ang verbalization, excessive salivation. So, mas maraming napoproduce na saliva or laway within their oral area. Meron din tayong mga tinatawag na hypersensitivity reactions, kagaya ng pamamanas or swelling or pamamantal, mga rashes, pamamaga, even angioedema. It's rare, but angioedema still dangerous, so we have to observe or monitor our patients. Hypothyroidism is also part of the adverse effects, lalo na kapag oversuppression ang nangyayari sa thyroid gland natin. And future nurses, pagdating sa nursing considerations, importante na alamin natin ano yung mga interventions na dapat natin alalahanin kapag nagbibigay ka ng iodine solution. Isa na nga dyan is to give with straw, no? Give with straw to avoid teeth staining. Let's say, for example, kailangan painumin ang pasyente oral fluids, mas nakakatulong na gumamit ng straw rather than direct mong ipainom kay patient. You may mix the solution with milk or juice para what you call this? Ma-mask yung metallic taste. Monitor for iodism symptoms, nabanggit na nga natin. Pwede itong ibigay pagkatapos kumain para maiwasan yung gastrointestinal upset. You may dilute the drops, no, in juice or water or milk para nga maiwasan yung metal-like taste. Always remember that you do not give iodine kasabay sa thioamides. So, dapat, kung kinakailangan, let's say, for example, talagang nakaprescribe yung metimazole or propylthiouracil kay patient, dapat mauna muna si thioamides bago ka magbigay ng iodine solution. Pwede mong pagsabayin, but you have to wait 1 hour after giving the thioamide. So, uulitin ko, mas mauuna ang thioamide before you give the iodine solution. The reason for this or the rationale behind is para maiwasan yung pag-trigger sa thyroid hormone production. And then, monitor the thyroid function tests natin, T3, T4, and TSH. Avoid foods high in iodine. So, we have to collaborate with the dietary or with the nutritionists pagdating sa mga ipapakain sa pasyente. So, iwas muna tayo sa mga pagkain na may iodine, kagaya ng mga seaweed, iodized salt, shellfish, ayan yung mga seafoods din natin. Huwag gamitin ang iodine solution for long-term therapy kasi again, uulitin ko, ginagamit lamang ito kasi pansamantala ang kanyang epekto. We still use the anti-thyroid medication, thioamides pa din. Parathyroid drugs naman ay kabilang pa din with the drugs acting on the endocrine system affecting naman the parathyroid gland. Ito naman may kinalaman sa ating calcium levels. We have two classifications under your parathyroid drugs. Meron tayong tinatawag na anti-hypocalcemic medications at meron din tayong tinatawag na anti-hypercalcemic drugs. Ang anti-hypocalcemic agents ay mga klase ng drugs o gamot na ginagamit natin kasi pinapataas niya yung antas ng calcium sa dugo. Ginagamit sila sa mga pasyenteng may kondisyon kagaya ng hypocalcemia or mababa ang calcium levels sa katawan. Now, bakit nga ba mahalaga ang calcium? Ano ba ang importance or significance ng calcium sa atin? Napag-usapan na natin no, in our discussions musculoskeletal, kapag pinag-uusapan ang calcium, ito ay kailangan kasi ginagamit natin siya in muscle contraction or yung paggalaw ng muscles. Ang calcium, meron ding parte or bahagi pagdating sa normalization ng pagtibok ng puso. Ang calcium, importante din when it comes sa pagpapadala ng nerve signals. Pinapatibay ang buto at ang ngipin. May kinalaman for blood clotting. Kaya kapag bumababa ang calcium levels, maaaring magdulot ng mga iba't ibang significant signs and symptoms sa pasyente natin, affecting our muscles, affecting our heart, our neurons, our bones. Kaya importante, class, na we maintain the levels of calcium in our body. Kasi patients will suffer from muscle cramps, even yung tuloy-tuloy na mga pamumulikat, mga tingling sensations, seizure, mga cardiac arrhythmias. Marami tayong iba't ibang klase ng drugs or substances na pwedeng i-consider na makapagpataas ng calcium levels. So, iba't ibang uri ng anti-hypocalcemic drugs natin. We have vitamin D preparations, kaya nandyan si calcitriol, na kung saan the vitamin D preparations, these are your drugs na tinutulungan yung katawan natin na mas ma-absorb yung calcium sa ating intestines or sa ating bituka. So I will repeat, isa sa mga klase ng anti-hypocalcemic drugs are your vitamin D preparation. Paki-highlight, pakilagyan ng asterisk, that is your calcitriol. Ang ginagawa ni calcitriol, tinutulungan ang body na mas ma-absorb ang calcium in our intestines. Now, calcitriol, siya yung pinaka-common. It's an active form of our vitamin D3. But we also have your other drugs like your ergocalciferol, that's your vitamin D2, and then your cholecalciferol, that's your vitamin D3 naman. Hindi ko lang nailagay dito sa ating presentation, but those are your anti-hypocalcemic drugs under vitamin D preparations. Calcitriol, cholecalciferol, and ergocalciferol. Apart from your vitamin D preparations, we also have your group of anti-hypocalcemic drugs, pakisulat, that's your calcium supplements. Calcium supplements. Obviously, your calcium supplements, meron tayong oral preparation. Ito sina calcium carbonate and calcium citrate. Pero for emergency cases, meron tayong mga intravenous preparations kagaya ng calcium gluconate, calcium chloride, which is mas potent as compared to calcium gluconate. I will repeat. Meron tayong two forms of your calcium preparations or calcium solutions or supplements. For the oral, we have the calcium carbonate and calcium citrate. Then for emergency cases, we can give calcium intravenous forms. We have your calcium gluconate and calcium chloride. Between the two, mas potent si calcium chloride. Now, ano ba ang mechanism of action ng mga calcium supplements? Ang ginagawa nito, from the term itself, they are calcium supplement. Direkta ang kanilang epekto sa ating katawan. Direktang nagdadagdag ng calcium in our body. That's why we can give this emergency. We can administer this intravenously. Ito binibigay conditions kagaya ng acute hypocalcemia. We can also give this post-thyroidectomy hypocalcemia, yung may mga deficiencies sa calcium, or yung may mga high phosphate levels, kagaya sa mga cases natin, chronic kidney diseases. Now, apart from those two anti-hypocalcemic drugs, meron din tayong tinatawag na parathyroid hormone analog or yung tinatawag na PTH analogs. Now, your parathyroid hormone analogs, they are important especially in cases which we call severe osteoporosis, no? Alam naman natin kapag sinabing osteoporosis, ang apektadong parte ng ating katawan dito is the bone, no? Yung brittleness ng ating buto. Ang gamot natin under your PTH analog is your teriparatide. Oh, I will repeat. The number one medication when it comes to your PTH analog is your teriparatide. Teriparatide. Now, ano ang ginagawa ng teriparatide? The teriparatide stimulates bone formation. Paano niya ini-stimulate ang bone formation? It increases the calcium absorption and reabsorption. So, yan yung kanyang role once we administer this in the body of our patients. Adverse effects are also present among our parathyroid medications. And isa na nga sa binabantayan nating adverse effects, lalo na for the vitamin D preparations, is yung tinatawag nating hypercalcemia. So, napapasobra naman ang production ng calcium or napapasobra naman ang calcium levels sa body ni patient. Isa pang concern natin dito is the gastrointestinal upset. There is also verbalization among patients na they experience weakness, constipation, and since tumataas or napapasobra ang calcium levels, risk then in the formation of what we call kidney stones. Kaya we have to carefully monitor our patients as well, educate them appropriately in taking their medications. For calcium supplements naman, ang binabantayan nating adverse effects are constipation, hypercalcemia. Since some of your calcium supplements can be given intravenous, watch out for any cardiac dysrhythmia. Again, calcium works no in our cardiac muscles, kaya observe for any cardiac dysrhythmia. For the PTH analogs, some of the verbalization is leg cramps, orthostatic hypotension. May mga rare cases kapag long-term use ng PTH analog, which is osteosarcoma, which is quite rare. Rare naman ito. Pagdating sa nursing considerations, of course, monitor the calcium levels. That's important. And remember, calcium limits natin, the normal limits for the calcium in the body will be 8.5 to 10.5 milligram per deciliter. Watch for any symptoms of hypercalcemia. So how are we going to know if hypercalcemia is experiencing by our patients? Watch out for any signs of constipation, confusion, weakness, mga pathologic fractures, mga GI upset that includes nausea, vomiting. And part of our role as nurses, no, to educate our patient in taking vitamin D with food, specifically fatty foods, kasi kailangan to para mas mag-absorb yung substance in our body. Now, for your calcium supplements, yung oral preparation natin, calcium carbonate, it must be taken with meals. Ito, mas better absorption siya when stomach has acid. Of course, watch out or educate your patient that they are at risk after thyroid or parathyroid surgery. Kaya observe for ano tawag doon? In medical term, we call it Shostak sign and Trauschuss sign. Importante din yung mga yan. So if Trauschuss sign is present, give IV calcium gluconate if severe yung manifestation ng pasyente. Avoid taking calcium supplements together with iron, tetracycline, your antibiotics, and levothyroxine. So again, drug-drug interaction, hindi dapat isabay ang calcium supplements along with iron, tetracycline, and levothyroxine. Kasi ang nangyayari, pinapahina nila yung absorption. Ang interval, it should be at least 4 hours kung talagang kailangang inumin yung mga gamot along with calcium carbonate. So, 4 hours yung interval. Encourage sunlight exposure, and when it comes to exposure, at least 10 to 15 minutes per day. Natural vitamin D activation kasi ang sikat or yung sinag ng araw. Kaya importante din yan. But 10 to 15 minutes per day only. Other classification of your parathyroid drugs are your anti-hypercalcemic agents. Ito naman yung grupo ng gamot na kinoconsider natin na nagpapababa ng sobrang calcium sa dugo. Ginagamit ang mga to kapag merong hypercalcemia ang pasyente. So kapag sobra-sobra naman yung levels ng calcium in our patients. Especially hypercalcemia is also associated with hyperparathyroidism, vitamin D toxicity. Yung iba may relation with malignancy or yung pagkalat ng cancer sa buto or yung bone metastasis. Now, ano ba yung hypercalcemia? Let's first identify what's hypercalcemia. Kapag sinabing hypercalcemia, ito yung sobra-sobrang calcium in our blood na ang pwedeng maging effect niya is weakness. It can also lead to confusion. It can trigger bone pain. Meron ding constipation, arrhythmias, formation ng kidney stones, meron ding polyuria and dehydration. So, yan yung pwedeng maging epekto kapag pinabayaan natin yung excess levels of calcium in our body. Now, to control this, we can give drugs such as your anti-hypercalcemic drugs, your biphosphonates, yan yung pinaka-common, biphosphonates. Ang mga example ng biphosphonates natin is your alendronate, we also have your ibandronate, and your zoledronic acid. Yung zoledronic acid, ito naman yung ina-administer natin intravenous or via IV. Now, the mechanism of drugs ng biphosphonates natin, ang ginagawa nila is pinipigilan ang bone breakdown or ng osteoclasts in our body. So, ibig sabihin, mas kaunting calcium ang napapalabas mula sa buto or mula sa bone. So again, ano ang mechanism of action ng biphosphonates? Pinipigilan ang bone breakdown ng osteoclasts. Kaya siya ginagamit for hypercalcemia, for osteoporosis, at para maiwasan yung malignancy in the bone. Yung isa namang klase ng anti-hypercalcemic drug, ang tawag natin sa kanya is calcitonin. Si calcitonin naman, ito, may preparations tayo nito, nasal o kaya naman injectables. At ang kanyang mechanism of action is pinapababa ang calcium sa dugo in terms of pakitandaan, pakimemorize, pakisulat, pagpigil sa bone resorption, pagpapalabas ng calcium sa kidneys, and ito ay indicated for acute hypercalcemia and osteoporosis pain relief. So, ginagamit din siya as management for pain related to osteoporosis. Pagdating sa adverse effects ng mga anti-hypercalcemic drugs natin, meron tayong mga adverse effects such as esophagitis, gastrointestinal upset, flushing, bone joint pain, pagdating na ito yung mga adverse effects ni biphosphonates. Pagdating kay calcitonin, since nasal ang isa sa mga way of administration natin, there could be nasal irritation kung nasal spray ito, na kung saan pwede ding makaranas ng mga gastrointestinal symptoms yung ating pasyente. For the nursing considerations, we can give biphosphonates on empty stomach. Make sure that there is a full glass of water, no? Para ma-ensure yung hydration in our patients. When we say full glass of water, that's about 6 to 8 ounces of water. Mas madalas ibinibigay yung gamot natin sa umaga on an empty stomach. Huwag humiga for 30 minutes after taking the drugs to prevent esophagitis and monitor bone pain and renal function. Now, for the calcitonin, rotate injection sites. Ibig sabihin, sa nasal spray, you may use nostrils, pero alternate. Then, assess for any signs of allergy. Especially may mga allergy with salmon. Yung salmon, yung isda. Kasi yung ating calcitonin, the part of the substance of your calcitonin is also derived part of it derived from the salmon. Monitor calcium levels regularly. Ayan. Just make sure hydration is in place. For glucocorticoids, watch for immunosuppression, monitor blood glucose. Kasi we can also administer this along with your glucocorticoids, lalo na yun nga sa may mga allergic reactions. Management natin ng hypersensitivity. Monitor urine output, monitor as well the fluids and the electrolytes. Watch out for any signs of dehydration. At dito po nagtatapos ang ating discussion pagdating sa mga gamot na ginagamit natin in endocrine system. Again, our priority concepts, yung mga pinag-usapan natin, basically, obviously, it helps us regulate levels of hormones in our body. Now, it is also part of the endocrine system, yung usapin pagdating sa glucose regulation, which will be discussed on a separate presentation on separate lectures. Those what we call your anti-diabetic medications. If there will be questions or concerns, you may submit your query in my email, in my email address, and all information shared to you are referenced or derived from our reference book, Focus on Nursing Pharmacology by Rebecca Tucker. Maraming salamat po.